need. The country is poorer, sicker, and less educated than at any time in recent history. The world is plagued by crises in health, human rights, and economics all at once. And our earth continues to warm precipitously. Somehow, endless war has become the norm. Wall Street's moral and ethical bankruptcy has gone ignored. And our obsession with individualism has extinguished nearly all concerns about social responsibility. But the winds of change are blowing. The tide of hope is rolling. And the cries of humanity resound louder and louder. And here we sit, faced with an unprecedented opportunity to stand ahead of history and to bend it toward justice and usher in the dawn of a new day. We can be the advocates who give a voice to the voiceless, who bring hope to those engulfed in a dark cloud of dishonesty. We can work to ensure full and equal participation in this social union we call democracy. The world needs advocates to push forward the cause of change. The world needs us, with our diverse talents and passions, to commit to the cause of humanity. The urgency of the times demand that we think about our legal education in a different light, that we ask ourselves a different set of questions. What honor can we bring our degree? What honor can we bring the profession? How can we use our knowledge and skills to improve the lives of others, to advance the cause of justice? How can we make the world a better place? Now, I believe the model answers to these questions live in the legacies of our predecessors. The answers are revealed by gazing down the road traveled before us. The answers rest in the life and legacy of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a Columbia graduate who graduated 50 years ago. She stood up when others were still sitting down, blazing a trail for women down the halls of justice. The answers can be found in the life and legacy of Jack Greenberg. A Columbia Law graduate and civil rights crusader. He has fought unwaveringly against racism and bigotry to move society toward equality. To answer these questions, one need look no further than Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He went from Columbia Law School to the presidency of the United States. He brokered a new deal for America to lift up and support human dignity. Like so many others, these lawyers use their legal talent to stand up for social progress, even in the face of massive resistance. We inherit that same responsibility. We must argue the case for a better tomorrow. We must persuade the jury of society that the possibility exists for a better world, that conditions can change, human dignity can be respected, and justice and equality can be guaranteed for all people, including people of every race, gender, sexual orientation, and religious belief. Now we face a monumental task, but it is one that is not impossible. It requires that we learn and work. Yes, we are graduating from Columbia Law School today, but we must remain students For you cannot change the world if you do not serve the world. And our commitment to that cause must be greater than our desire to benefit ourselves. In closing, I ask that you take one moment and reflect on your time here at Columbia Law School. Think about how far you have come. Now take a second and think about where you will be 20 years from now. What might be said of your body of work? What might be written? Will you have brought honor to your degree? Will your legacy be worthy of emulation? If you are ready to take up this challenge, to grab the torch of justice and continue to march toward righteousness, if you are ready to take up the cause to advance the common good, if you refuse to be a parasite on society, stand up. Stand up for justice where you see its miscarriage. Stand up for peace where unnecessary conflict persists. Stand up for right where there is wrong. Columbia Law School, graduating class of 2009, stand up. Stand up, and together, let us do our part to engineer a better world. Thank you. Thank you. It is my pleasure to now introduce Namungo, LLM, who was elected by popular vote to speak for the Master of Law and Doctor of Science in Law graduating classes of 2009. Friends, families, distinguished faculty, Sandats Mongolia. Good day to you in Mongolia. We came here from all over the world, from places as far apart as my country Mongolia, to Colombia with an O, and Nigeria. Now, we are about to become members of a single community. We are about to become graduates of Columbia Law School. For us, LLMs, this past year passed in the twinkling of an eye. It is almost as though some supernatural force pressed forward the time itself and brought us to this moment instantaneously. We worked through the heaps of daily reading assignments and exam periods together. At all times, we stood hand in hand, or more accurately, we sat laptop to laptop. We marched through exams and classes with our eyes set on the next day, as every exam was followed by another, and each class led to next. We only looked forward, and now, all of a sudden, we have time to look back. We had fun, and lots of it. We had ethnic parties, and dinner parties, and parties just for the fun of hanging out together. We ran into each other in the Metropolitan Opera and explored the Williamsburg nightlife. We have had birthday parties, and many of them, as we are over 200 students in the LLM class alone. Before you start doing some simple math and calculate all the precious study time spent celebrating the coming into this world of yet another remarkable individual, I must make a disclaimer and say that the birthdays were combined, and most of the time we actually studied and studied hard, which proved to be no less or even more fun than any activity I just mentioned. We indulged in constant underlining and outlining. I will miss the sound of markers scratching on paper and fingers tapping on keyboards. that fill the air in Jerome Greenhalgh. I hope that some entertaining soul out there will one day make a sleep machine with those sweet sounds of learning. I will miss reading status updates on Facebook by our standing library population, who seem to have grown roots into their usual seats in Arthur Diamond Library. Despite their busy schedule, they never fail to post comments on the next Frank Sinatra singing his heart out outside the library windows, or pigeons cooing as intensely. Guys, I don't know how you will survive without your natural habitat. I will miss the long hours discussing the cases and doctrinal points, while cracking this case-specific joke or two. I will miss that all. But most of all, I will miss you, my friends, and I will miss Columbia Law School. This school is a special place. Columbia was everything I expected from a great US, in fact, a global law school, and it was much more than that. The study of law at Columbia was among the most intellectually stimulating experiences I have had in my life, and has definitely added quite a few wrinkles in my brain. The strength of any great institution lies in the people who form it. Of course, at Columbia, it is first and foremost its outstanding faculty, our professors, to whom we owe so much. My fellow students, you were also an integral part of what makes Columbia what it is. I have seldom met so many bright and hard-working individuals in one place, and it was a privilege to have studied alongside you. Jus est ars de juste et bono. A law is the art of the good and the just, reads the inscription on the front of the former law school building. Indeed, if law is an art, then I'm a true artist here. As for goodness and justice, I will describe it in the words of Judge Cardozo in Meinhardt versus Salmon, that it was not honesty alone, but the punctilio of an honor, the most sensitive, that was the standard of behavior here. Anyone who says that the great curve brings out the worst in people and leads to cutthroat competition has never studied at Columbia Law School. We competed, but did so as friends, not as foes. The knowledge was shared, not concealed. We shared our notes, worked on combined outlines, and formed study groups. We learned together and learned from one another. I would be remiss if I failed to mention everyone else at the law school who is crucial to making it such a special place. And I thank in particular Dean Sylvia Polo and the staff of the Graduate Legal Studies Office for their help and friendship. Our experience here was nothing less than life-changing. We forged true friendships and discovered a treasure trove of knowledge. These riches shall stay with us forever. I conclude by saying that wherever life leads us, no matter what happens to the economy or Wall Street or anything, the graduating class of 2009, we are bound for success. There is no other way. After all, we are Columbia Law School graduates, and this is a distinction that matters. Congratulations!
Good afternoon. My name is Abby Hudson, and today I have both the honor and the privilege of introducing this year's recipient of the Willis L. Emery Prize for Excellence in Teaching, Professor Suzanne Goldberg. achievements. But since we don't have all afternoon, I suggest you go home and Google her. You will find 3,952 pages representing her accomplishments. Professor Goldberg's achievements, despite their importance, are not the reason why the class of 2009 chose to honor her today. Today, we honor Professor Goldberg because as our professor, she has been an advisor, a mentor, a role model, and a shining example of the type of lawyer we hope to one day be. Along with almost a third of the class of 2009, I had the pleasure of taking civil procedure with Professor Goldberg. In Civ Pro, Professor Goldberg set the tone for what would be expected of us both as law students, but also throughout our legal careers. She demanded excellence, but as long as we were striving for it, she was unwaveringly patient on this line. I'll never forget the day that she called on me in class and asked me to explain a footnote. Now, I had read the case, I swear, but I'd skipped over the footnote which, unbeknownst to me, held the most critical detail. So Professor Goldberg asked a simple yes or no question, and crossing my fingers, I muttered, yes? She smiled and replied, the other answer. As first-year law students, we all appreciated Professor Goldberg's sense of patience, but perhaps more than that, we appreciate that she had and continues to have high expectations for us. These expectations push us to dig deeper and to work harder. In addition to teaching classes, Professor Goldberg also directs the Sexuality and Gender Law Clinic. This clinic does actual legal work and has real clients. When I was in the clinic, one of our clients was seeking asylum for persecution in his home country, and conveniently, all of the papers and application materials to the court were due the day after Thanksgiving. So as our team spread across the country to celebrate the holiday with our families, we had to continue to work on the case. Apparently darting away between turkey and dessert and waking up in the middle of the night just to check her emails, Professor Goldberg was there to answer every single one of our questions and to push us to have new and innovative solutions. But she is a professor, always a professor first, and as one of my colleagues noted, even at 2 a.m. the Friday after Thanksgiving, Professor Goldberg was asking us to reflect on the decisions we made, never missing a chance for a teaching moment, or as she likes to say, a pedagogical point. I know that each of us who shared this experience will take her example with us, and if further on in our careers we wonder if we should go that extra mile, we know that Professor Goldberg certainly will. But even those students who never had a chance to take a class with Professor Goldberg got to learn a valuable lesson just by watching her play basketball. You see, Professor Goldberg is a star member of the always-winning faculty team in the Dean's Cup charity basketball game between Columbia and NYU. During a particularly crucial moment in the game last year, the ball was knocked loose, and from across the court, you could see Professor Goldberg run and dive for it. So elbows were thrown, legs were flailing, it was melee on the court. But of course, Professor Goldberg came up with the ball. And as the class of 2009 leapt to our feet to cheer her on, you could see her lean over to her opponent and whisper, "Sorry." The lesson couldn't have been more clear had we been in a classroom. Professor Goldberg showed us that although you must be courteous to your adversary, you must always, always fight for the ball. Professor Goldberg, on behalf of the class of 2009, thank you for making us be better people and better lawyers. Please join me in honoring this year's recipient of the Willis L. Maurice Prize for Excellence in Teaching, Professor Suzanne Goldberg.
Oh boy, thank you, Abby. You have nearly made me speechless, but I hear I'm supposed to say something, so I will. And I want to welcome again the family, the friends, the 50th reunion alumni, including my father, Richard Goldberg, and the rest of the illustrious class of '59. And especially hearty congratulations to you, the JD, LLM, and JSD classes of 2009. It is an enormous honor for me to be recognized in the name of the legendary Willis Reese, who I understand was taken to walking across the tops of the desks while he questioned his students. Now, to do this now, of course, would be a high-risk proposition. Imagine asking questions while trying to avoid the tangle of laptop cords everywhere. But really, I cannot tell you how excited I am to be here today. In a way, I feel like I am graduating alongside all of you as I joined the faculty here just 3 years ago, when many of you were 1Ls. So for that and for many other reasons, you will always hold a very special place for me. I remember so vividly sitting in my own law school graduation, excited, somber, amazed at how quickly it all went, a little put off, frankly, about having to start studying for the bar immediately. And when I was wearing this fashionable but somewhat uncomfortable and hot graduation hood for the very first time at my own graduation, I could not have imagined that I would spend the next decade litigating lesbian and gay rights cases, and then one day have the chance to teach about those cases and to re-immerse myself in the world of civil procedure from the other side of the podium. Yet, as I stand here today, having received this most wonderful of awards from all of you, I can't imagine anything I would rather be doing. It's the funny thing about a career. You can plan, and you should plan, but for all that planning, you never know exactly where you'll wind up. So what I want to do now, which won't surprise any of you who have had me in class, is to ask you a couple of questions. A last-minute graduation quiz before we let you go. And the subject is leadership, and the question is, how will you exercise it? How will you lead? And how will you make your contributions? And as I'm sure you just noticed, because you have all become exceedingly close listeners to the questions we ask you, the question is really how will you lead, not whether you will lead. Or to put the point in law school lingo, leadership is not an elective as a lawyer. Now, why do I say that? I say that because, as you all surely know by now, being a lawyer gives you tremendous power, and that's much of what we've heard from our speakers already. But with that power comes great responsibility. I'm not just talking about the power to file lawsuits or defend against them, though I know you all know very closely how to do that from your memories of civil procedure. Nor am I talking only about the power to give legal opinions to clients, to structure binding transactions or family responsibilities, to advocate, whether for asylum seekers, criminal defendants, the government, corporations, or anyone else, although those powers too are terribly valuable. But the power that I'm interested in at this moment comes from another source. It comes from the judgment and the skills you have developed to spot problems in the real world as well as on your law school exams, and to find solutions. From your abilities to frame and reframe arguments, to analyze systems and institutions, to think sharply about the power of government and how it can be used for the good, even when we don't all agree on what that good is or how best to achieve it. I want to talk to you about this power because, as Marian Wright Edelman, who was the founder and longtime leader of the Children's Defense Fund, put the point, if you don't like the way the world is, you have an obligation to change it. So back to the question, what will you do with all this power? How will you use it? How will you lead and contribute? I can't give you those answers, of course. Those are for you to figure out. But I will offer 2 process points along the way. Not pedagogical points, but process points. For one, remember that you have it, that you have this leadership power, and that you need to exercise it. And on this note, I will share one personally embarrassing story with you that actually predates law school, but has stayed with me on this theme of recognizing your power. So shortly before going to law school, I was doing graduate work at the National University of Singapore. And I wound up running track for the university team. Now, as those of you who have seen me play basketball for the Columbia Law School faculty team at the Dean's Cup, Abby was very generous in her description, but really I try, but I try hard. That is, we can certainly say that. I'm not especially fast, but I try. So at the last minute at an international competition, the coach added me to a relay race. He assigned me to run the third lap, which is the slot typically reserved for the weakest runner of the team's 4 runners. The idea is that the first 2 runners build up the lead, and the last anchor runner makes up for whatever the third leg runner has lost. As I was getting ready for my turn, I was excruciatingly nervous, and I told myself that I really didn't have to lead here. I just had to get around the track without falling and without dropping the baton. And I could leave it to my teammates to do whatever it took to win the race, since they were all very strong runners. About halfway around my lap, though, as I was chugging along thinking I was going to survive this, I felt the next runner, the next team's runner, pull up behind me. And I realized, in really a flash, that I had to step up my pace. That I, as much as my teammates, had to act like I was in the lead. As the coach told me afterwards, in that moment, I looked like I had turned myself from a loping pony into a flying horse, which I tried hard to take as a compliment. And we won the race, but what really stayed with me is this, that each of us, in whatever role we find ourselves, whether we are the most or the least experienced in the room or on the team, needs to step up and do all we can do to bring our leadership to the game. This can be especially hard when you're a brand new lawyer. After all, although you all know quite a lot, it's not as though you JDs have ever practiced law before, we hope. And even you LLMs and JSDs today will be newly minted with your graduate degrees. So in some ways, everything you do here forward will be new. And there will always be someone who has done what you're doing more times than you, for more years, in more varied settings. Still, and perhaps I should not be